Hello Internet, welcome back to Mutton Chop Gaming. I'm the Mutton Chop Gamer, and today we're going to be taking a look at The Darkness 2 for Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. Now, a high percentage of you probably only know The Darkness 2 for the zero punctuation review. A small percentage of you know that it's a game with a fantastic narrative and a gore factor to rival that of Mortal Kombat. Now, for the small percentage of you who don't know what it is, sit back, relax, and let me tell you about what I consider to be one of the most underrated series of the 7th generation of video consoles. Let's get started. The narrative is freaking amazing. Warning, it will spoil the first Darkness game, but not really since the goal was established from the start of that game. You are Jackie Estacado, who is now the head of the New York Mafia. It has been 2 years since Jackie killed his Uncle Paulie, and he now has to learn how to keep the Darkness under control. What is the Darkness? It is an evil, chaotic entity that was pissed off when God started the creation. In order to screw everything up, the Darkness began searching for human hosts to own. Then it would use this new physical body to tear and mutilate everything in its path. However, it can only do so when it is not in any light. It is also important to note that it is carried on through a family line of firstborn sons. While it controlled Jackie, it forced him to watch his girlfriend, Jenny's, murder. Well, after 2 years and learning how to bottle up the Darkness, Jackie is having dinner when he is suddenly attacked by a rival gang at the restaurant, where we see a hunchbacked man with a cane mentioning how Jackie is stronger than his father. This results in him ordering the gang to keep pushing Jackie. It is then that he has no choice but to use the Darkness. As we continue with the story, we find one Darkling, a being created from the power of the Darkness and spawned from Jackie's mind with a British accent and a charming personality. This is different from the first game, where you could summon 4 of the little guys at once, but they were unimportant to the story, whereas this little guy is fairly integral to it. Eventually, we discover that everything was started by the Brotherhood of Darkness, an organization that wants the Darkness for their own in order to take over the world. All the while, the Darkness is making Jackie question whether or not this is his reality, sending him to a mental institution where every character you see is somebody else in the hospital. Speaking of characters, that's a personal issue I have with this sequel. The last game made you care about the few gang members who cared about you and sided with you against Paulie. While you have a bunch of guys at your house now, you don't really need to get to know them in either reality. Heck, my favorite character, Butcher Joyce, isn't interesting anymore. Except for this joke, of course. Aside from this narrative, you can find Darkness relics, each giving you a boost in dark essence, which stems from human suffering and fuels the Darkness. And each relic also has a little description that helps add to the lore of the Darkness. Would you like an example? How about this skull, belonging to Enoch, that has been engraved with the language of angels after his life of being the expert on all things occult and supernatural as a result of him being taken to heaven by God for a little visit. Now let's move on to the aesthetics for a bit. The visuals have decided to not try for photorealism, like the last game, but instead, the designers opted for a more stylized look, trying to seem like a comic book. It reminds me a lot of Telltale's Walking Dead, where it's not just cel-shaded, it's carefully designing the characters with a deliberate color palette in order to make everything fit well together, from bright yellows to dark purples. The odd thing is that everybody seems well proportioned here. Sure, it's great draftsmanship and any artist should be proud of that. But if you have realistic silhouettes, it is a tad disorienting to see the figures have colorations like this. While the sound design is lovingly visceral for every violent move you make, I can't remember one original song. Sure, you hear Black Betty for a bit, but it's just the ending of the song, and it is not written by the crew working on the game. There are a few graphical glitches here as well, and it's a crying shame. Why does this happen all the times in games where dead bodies become rag dolls? And why do the textures pop in here? This is a scripted scene. Heck, the only gameplay here is picking between the red pill and the dead pill. Now we get to the primary reason I love this game, the freaking gameplay. Remember when I said this game's gore rivals Mortal Kombat? Let me just get the big one out of the way so we can focus on how the game is played. There's an execution move where you rip a man's spine out of his anus, which is called assecution. Yes, I swore, but I was quoting the game, so shut up. The game starts out on rails, where you are given one gun, then you get to dual-wield pistols later. After you unleash the darkness, the tutorial level begins teaching you about using your darkness snakes. You eventually pick up more guns, and you begin what the designers call quad wielding. This is where you have the two darkness snakes controlled by two buttons, and the two guns activated by two different buttons. Originally, I thought this was going to be very confusing and complicated, but it surprisingly fits on like a glove. Being able to use only guns or only the darkness snakes is a pretty good option, at least until you meet enemies with whips that pull guns out of your hands, and the guys with floodlights to blind you and force the darkness snakes back. Also, why does the game make you go blind? The first Darkness game didn't make you go blind, and when you're lit up in your house, you aren't going blind. So is the darkness blinding Jackie when he gets into the light? And if it is, why does it order Jackie to stay away from the light when he can barely see at all? Oh, and speaking of guns coming out of your hands, there is a significant problem when trying to pick up objects off the ground. Several times, I'd accidentally pick up something I didn't want, but couldn't find what I dropped when picking up the new thing. What happens? Did it fall through the ground? Is it broken? What? As you play through the game, you may have noticed that every bit of suffering you inflict earns you darkness essence. You can spend this at upgrade shrines, and you get upgrades such as summoning flies to distract enemies, darkness bullets, different forms of executions, and being able to bring out black holes from evil enemies. Now, on the surface to new players, this is awesome. But let's compare to the last game. In the old game, your darkness abilities would drain, but could be recharged with the two snakes actually drinking in surrounding darkness. You could bring in two black holes whenever you wanted, and worst of all, my favorite power is nowhere to be seen in this new game. Where are the darkness guns? They were two guns that drained your darkness power, but you could take cover to recharge them, and best of all, one was like a cannon in your left hand, a machine gun in the other hand. Those were my favorite weapons through the entire game, and now they're gone. Oh, I almost forgot the Darkling. In the last game, you had 4 different Darklings, each with a different power. In this new game, your one Darkling not only does just about everything those Darklings did, but he also pulls enemies out of cover for you to either shoot or execute. Although what he doesn't do is have the ability to snuff out lights. That would have been too useful. The game is a bit too short. I could tell you the number of hours I played, but that shouldn't matter so long as the game feels complete. See, a game could be short but feel complete, or perhaps the game could be 20 torturous hours. I'd much rather have the former of those two. Although it is worse if the game is 4 torturous hours, but that is beside the point. The Darkness 2 is enjoyable, but for the love of crap, it just feels too short. Sure, they probably did it for Vendettas, the multiplayer co-op mode where you and 3 people play as 4 characters, each with a reason to hate the Dark Brotherhood, and each one holding one power of the darkness. The key problem, for me at least, is no darkness snakes. It's shown in the game that people can have the snakes without actually having the darkness in them, so it takes away one of the most cathartic powers of the darkness. Now, this is a segment that will be fairly regular on this show, that I like to call, Developers, please take my ideas! With the cliffhanger ending in the game, it's obvious 2K wanted this to be a trilogy. First idea, market the game correctly. From what I understand, they had the game at PAX behind dividers and curtains in order to show the game in pitch blackness with high quality headphones. In theory, this sounds awesome, but groups of people walked past without realizing it was a demo booth. It looked like an advertisement. They could have designed it to have bloody arrows guiding the people to the curtain saying, "Experience the darkness." I'm no marketer, but I know that the first thing you should do for your game is to let people know that you actually have a product. Some might say that's the reason the Wii U isn't selling that well. Now let's talk about how the gameplay should be. First, quad wielding is awesome. More of that. However, I want my freaking darkness guns. Go over the past 2 games and figure out what the most popular darkness powers were and carry them over, and think of new ones. Then, let us bind them to 2 buttons so we can just have them available whenever we want. Lastly, for this section, and most importantly, merge the aesthetics and story together. By that, I mean the writers are establishing Jackie with the darkness to be a god of shadow when he isn't in any light. So, if you can, get music styled and written like that of the first game, because the music really did make you feel like a god among men. As for the visuals, I'm not sure what to suggest. Both realism or styled could work, but have a demo in both styles, then playtest to figure out which one fits your theme more. Please do this, and remember, while I am not expecting anything in return for these ideas, if you do plan to take them, it'd be cool of you to thank the Mutton Chop Gamer in the credits. The Darkness 2 is one of those games that, even though it has many flaws, it is still a blast to play. Now, it is rated M for mature, so if you are under 17 years of age, I can't recommend it to you, but for everyone else, I give this game a solid B+. Now, you can get it for really cheap now, because, well, it does have its flaws and not a lot of people bought it, so I think you can get it for like 20 bucks on Steam now, and yeah, there we go. 2 B+ games in a row. I'd better pick something worse for next time. Hey, did you like my video? Then why don't you throw me a like, a comment, and subscribe to my channel? If you're looking for something else to watch on YouTube, why don't you click here to watch one of my favorite videos up here, or even here to watch my last review? I mean, you're on YouTube, so you're not going to be going anywhere for a while.